You said, I'd like to write a story on people that struggle with the justice system. Debt, joblessness, stress, addiction, homelessness, vagrancy, moving, starting with family and friends, stressing every facet, breaking every foundation, stability, support structure, family, friends, job, coworkers, stress of jumping through hoops for help with strings attached, contorting life into a dancing monkey to avoid watching your kids starve. Missing payments, insurance revoked, credit card debt racked up, credit limits reduced, liquidity freeze. Swiping a dozen cards hoping one will work, trying to pass it off as the machine not working, hoping nobody accuses you of being a thief or anything. Collecting leftovers at parties, stretching acceptable and edible further and further, pulling clean stuff out the top of the trash, to hopping in and pulling stuff out. Trying to be law-abiding, you realize there's a price to exist legally. If you don't pay every day, you're a criminal. Without ever hurting anybody, insurance, rent, gas, food, phone. People look at you like a stain on their perfect little worlds. Could you draft some scenes? Maybe try different perspectives, second, third person and others. Child Protective Services, Police, ChatGPT said, ChatGPT, here are some drafted scenes from different perspectives exploring the struggle with the justice system, poverty, and societal pressure. Scene 1, first person, a parent, jumping through hoops for help. They say help is out there. You just have to ask. So I asked the caseworker at social services, the one who looks through me like I'm a smudge on her paperwork. She tapped her keyboard, printed a list of food banks with expiration dates, and sent me off with a reminder that my benefits expire next month. I asked my boss if I could stay on past the holiday season. He sighed and said they're making cuts. I asked my landlord if I could pay late just this once. He rubbed his temples and said, I get it, but I have a mortgage too. I asked my sister if I could stay with her until I figured things out. She took a long pause before saying, I don't want my kids seeing all this. So now, I'm asking the woman at the gas station if the machine's just acting up, trying to pass off the failed card swipe as a technical error. She frowns. I pretend to check my phone like I'm waiting for a bank transfer. I keep swiping, one card after another until one finally works. A stranger behind me exhales loudly. I don't turn around. Scene 2, second person, you as the reader, the cost of existing. You wake up sweating in the backseat of your car, parked under the flickering streetlight outside a gas station. You don't have enough gas to keep the heat running all night. You count the coins in your pocket, maybe enough for a coffee. You stretch, back aching, and pull out your phone. A text from your boss, don't bother coming in. Your breath catches. You had been late, sure, but the bus was full. You ran. You tried. You open another text. Your rent is overdue. Eviction process starts Friday. A car pulls up next to yours. A woman locks her doors before stepping out. You see it in her eyes, the way she glances at you, like you're a walking cautionary tale. You used to think that as long as you kept your head down and followed the rules, you'd be fine. But every day there's a new rule you didn't know about. A bill you can't pay. A law you've broken just by existing. You used to have a house, a job, a name people said with respect. Now, you're the person others cross the street to avoid. Scene 3, third person, limited social worker, CPS visit. Miriam had done this job for 10 years. She'd seen worse. But that didn't mean she could ignore what was in front of her. A one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a space heater in the center of the living room. A man, unshaven and exhausted, standing stiffly with his arms crossed as she scanned the room. A girl, maybe 6, sitting on the couch clutching a stuffed bear. The complaint mentioned food insecurity, Miriam said gently. The man, Jonathan, according to her file, exhaled sharply. We have food. I just lost my job, that's all. Miriam opened the fridge. 2 half-empty ketchup packets. A single slice of bread. Jonathan rubbed his forehead. I get paid next Friday. She believed him. She could see the desperation in his eyes, the same kind she had seen in 100 other parents who weren't bad people, just drowning. She glanced at the child. Have you eaten today, sweetie? The girl nodded too quickly. Jonathan's jaw tightened. She's fine. Miriam made a note in her file. This visit would lead to more visits, more paperwork, more hoops for this father to jump through. She wondered if he would make it. She hoped so. Scene 4, omniscient perspective, the courtroom. A system that never forgets. The courtroom is half empty. The judge looks tired. The public defender flips through a stack of folders, his eyes hollow from too many cases and too little sleep. The defendant, John Wilkes, 42, unemployed, stands before the judge. His crime? Trespassing. The prosecutor reads off the charges. Mr. Wilkes was found sleeping in the stairwell of a downtown office building. He was previously warned to vacate the premises. John Wilkes shifts in his too large suit. It's the one he wears for every court date, the one a church donated 2 years ago when he still had hope. The judge sighs. Mr. Wilkes, do you have legal residence? John hesitates. I'm working on it. The judge looks at the public defender. Any recommendations? The defender skims a document, already knowing what he's about to say. The state recommends probation. John exhales, not jail. Good. Then the judge speaks. Probation requires a fixed address. John's stomach sinks. The gavel falls. Another broken man steps back into the cycle. The system does not forget. The system does not forgive. Scene 5. First person police officer. Thin line. I see him before he sees me. A guy digging through a fast food dumpster behind a strip mall. He's careful, pulling out only the cleanest stuff from the top. I watch him hesitate before grabbing a burger still half wrapped in foil. I sigh and step forward. Sir. He freezes, turns slow. His eyes dart to the exit, but he's too tired to run. Can't be back here, I say. He exhales. I'm not causing trouble. I look at the burger. The last thing I want is to book a guy for eating trash. But if the store owner calls again, my hands will be tied. I get it, I say. But next time try the shelter. He laughs. Not happy, not bitter, just empty. Tried. They're full. I want to say something else, something helpful. Instead, I nod and step back. He watches me, like he's waiting for a trick. I don't call it in. He takes his burger and walks away, and I pretend not to notice. These perspectives show different angles of struggle, how people fall into these cycles, how the system keeps them there, and how those around them react. Let me know if you want to. Explore a specific character or theme further. You said, could you cover some scene draft ideas of mental struggles? Even if you don't have mental struggles, people start questioning your mental capacity. We are all cyborgs but don't know it. Those with access look down on those without access to modern tech. They can't even imagine being without. They assume you are stupid or lying or malicious or joking or insane. Telepathic via phone lines, super speed of cars and planes, super strength of tractors and forklifts. Plastic cards can magic things to your doorstep appliances like magic servants, a staff more comprehensive than a king's castle. And then when you struggle, people start offering advice and blaming or punishing you. If you don't do as they say between stress and strings, you look plenty crazy. And you wonder if you are God help anyone who actually has mental struggles, or has even a little divergence. You're constantly moving, so you're around new cultures, new norms, new learning curves, you look stupid, defiant. Trouble. People can get surprisingly aggressive for minor things. Prejudice is ingrained deep in biology far beyond skin color. If you talk different, walk different, smile different, laugh different. What's funny? You smiling at me, punk? What's the big idea? An innocent common phrase from one city might get you arrested if taken literally. Everyone expects everyone to speak their language, not just English, but local phrases, jargon, geography, terms, culture, industry, etc. Courtrooms are the epitome of this. They use strange words in strange ways, large labyrinthian offices, paperwork, and words to navigate. Judges like pompous fat kings sit in decorated thrones surrounded by advisors and sycophants, waiting to pass judgment on some poor groveling soul not even given a chair, standing at a crowded little desk, being told a script and genuflection to appease His Highness's righteous wrath, and only take half the punishment for being noticed. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT, here are some drafted scene ideas exploring mental struggles, societal expectations, and the way people judge those who don't fit in. Scene 1. First person, the cyborg illusion. I watch them walk past me, fingers twitching, eyes flicking between the real world and their pocket screens. Their voices murmur to invisible people, their faces lit up by the glow of messages, maps, and endless information. They don't see me, not really. To them, I am a ghost, an animal, a relic. I don't have a phone, I don't have a car, I don't have a bank card that summons food to my doorstep. Without these, I am less than human. I asked a man for directions yesterday. He blinked at me like I was an alien. Just look it up. When I told him I couldn't, his expression changed like he was deciding if I was joking or crazy. I should have lied. Should have made an excuse, a story, something to cover the unacceptable truth. No connection, no machine interface, no power at my fingertips. Then what am I? Scene 2, third person, punished for struggling. Mark sat on the cold plastic chair at the shelter, head in his hands. Across from him, the volunteer tapped on a clipboard. You just need a plan, she said. Mark nodded. Plans were good. He used to have plans. Get a job. He tried. Nobody called back. Get an ID. That required a birth certificate. That required money. That required a mailing address. That required an ID. Go to the food bank. Bus fare costs money. The closest food bank is 3 miles away. Walking 3 miles back carrying 50 pounds of canned goods? Sure. You just need to try harder. Mark clenched his fists. The first time he had believed them. The second time he had tried. The 100th time it started to sound like mockery. Scene 3, second person, culture clash and prejudice. You're new here. Again, another city, another job, another set of unwritten rules. At lunch, your coworkers laugh at something, a joke you don't understand. You try to join in, say something funny from your old city, your old life. Silence. The laughter dies. One guy shifts in his chair. What's that supposed to mean? You backtrack. Explain. They don't care. You said something wrong. That night, you catch the bus. You greet the driver with a casual phrase that was friendly back home. He stiffens. Watch your mouth. You stare, confused. Someone behind you mutters, idiot. You sit down. Your heart pounds. Tomorrow you will speak less. Scene 4, first-person courtroom as a dystopian ritual. They tell me to stand. The judge looms above, wrapped in black fabric, seated on his throne. The clerks scurry at his feet, recording his words as if they are divine edicts. The lawyers whisper like priests interpreting scripture. I'm not given a chair. My crimes are listed in words I don't understand. Failure to comply, failure to appear, failure to maintain domicile, failure to exist correctly. The public defender, my appointed guide through this temple, leans in and tells me to say yes, Your Honor, and nothing else. Speak too much, and I am defiant. Speak too little, and I am uncooperative. They are arguing about my life as if I am not here. I don't know the language. I don't know the rituals. I don't know the cost of each misstep. The gavel falls. Judgment has passed. I am dismissed. And I still don't know what just happened. These scenes touch on isolation, societal expectations, and the struggle of navigating systems that don't accommodate human struggle. Let me know if you want a deeper dive into any of these. You said, thanks. Let's try some scenes of recidivism, getting flagged in the system. That its system is a one-way street.
Hey. Speechify here. You have exceeded your daily HD word limit. In order to continue enjoying your experience with high-quality voices, please upgrade your subscription by clicking the upgrade button. If you are not ready to upgrade, you can continue listening with non-HD voices.
Darker and darker with hardly any hope and little to no help or pity. A child can be sentenced to life, for simply not getting along with a teacher, a stigma that stays with him all through school, leads to a few scrapes with the law. The shark scents blood in the water and come chasing ever since. People say you can tell from a young age what kids will end up in prison. The statistics are astoundingly strong, but nobody sees it as a broken system failing our people as long as it's not you, right? That ideally, wouldn't interaction with the law increase law abiding, e.g. shouldn't police, judges, prisons, social workers, officials, agents, etc. shouldn't they be developing more peace, more security, more law abiding? But it's the exact opposite. One false arrest can lead to dozens of convictions, generations of recidivism, thousands of broken families and lives. And could you bullet point some other scene ideas from all we've talked about? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT, here are some scenes exploring recidivism, systemic entrapment, and the self-perpetuating cycle of punishment. Scene 1, first person, the mark never fades. I was 13 the first time they called me a criminal. Not in court, not on paper, but in the eyes of the school, the cops, the neighbors. A teacher didn't like me. I talked back. I stopped trying. I got into fights. The principal called me trouble. The word stuck. When the cops started stopping me, it wasn't if I did something. It was what I had done this time. By 16, I had a record. By 18, I had a rap sheet. By 20, I had parole. People say criminals don't change. They never ask if society lets them. Scene 2, third person, the smell of blood in the water. Jalen sat on the curb, wrist zip-tied, watching the cop's pen scratch across his notepad. "What were you doing in the alley?" Jalen bit his tongue. It didn't matter what he said. Wrong place, wrong time. The charge would be loitering. Or trespassing. Maybe vagrancy. Just enough to get him in the system again. The last charge was for a misunderstanding in a store. The one before that? Walking home too late at night. Each charge made the next one easier. Every time he was booked, the judge looked at a thicker file. Guilty or not, the pattern had been set. And sharks love patterns. Scene 3, second person, the one-way street. You get out. Again. The halfway house has rules. The job applications ask about your record. The landlord wants a background check. The city says there's help, but the programs have waiting lists, requirements, fees. You need a job to get housing. You need an address to get hired. You need a car to get to work. You need money for a car. You need a miracle. But you miss one parole meeting, one form, one check-in, and it's all gone. Back in you go. The street only runs one way. Scene 4, first person, born into it. I was 6 when I saw my dad arrested. 12 when my brother went inside. 15 when my friend got shot. 17 when I was first booked. 22 when I met my first public defender, a man who barely looked at me before pleading me out. They say you can tell which kids will end up in prison. They never wonder why. Bullet point scene ideas. The cycle of recidivism and systemic entrapment. A man released from prison struggles to find a job. His probation officer tells him to try harder. With no work, he misses child support payments. He's arrested for non-payment. Back to square one. A teenager shoplifts for food. The arrest follows him for life. Employers, landlords, and banks refuse him. The only people who offer him work? Gangs. A kid gets expelled for fighting. With nowhere to go, he falls into crime. Years later, he realizes school was the only chance he ever had. A false accusation lands an innocent man in jail. The time spent locked up ruins his job, his home, his life. The next time he's arrested, he really is guilty. The stigma of the system. A young man leaves prison and moves to a new town. No one knows his past. The first time he's pulled over, the cop runs his record. From then on, the whole town knows. A woman is denied housing because of an old felony. With nowhere else to go, she squats. When she's caught, she's arrested again for trespassing. A teenager tries to join the military to escape his criminal record. The recruiter shakes his head. They won't take you. No way out. The failure of the justice system. A judge berates a defendant for not paying fines. The defendant explains he can't find work. The judge raises the fine. A public defender rushes through cases, telling each defendant to plead guilty. They have no idea what their rights were. A man is wrongfully accused. He fights the case. He wins, but the arrest stays on his record forever. Let me know which ideas resonate most, or if you'd like more variations. You said, "That's great, could you draft a few of those ideas?" ChatGPT said, ChatGPT. Scene 1, the job search, first-person perspective. I walked into the office with my best clothes, stiff khakis, a button-up a little too tight from prison. Wait. I held the job application like it was a golden ticket, like filling it out meant I was finally on my way. I wrote my name, my number, my last job. Then came the box. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? I hesitated. I thought about lying. About leaving it blank. But I checked yes. I handed it in, and the manager gave me a polite smile. We'll be in touch. I never heard back. I never do. Scene 2, the missing meeting, second-person perspective. You wake up late. The bus isn't running. Your parole officer doesn't care. You run across town, sweat pooling in your shirt, your stomach growling from skipping breakfast. You arrive at the office, breathless. The receptionist shakes her head. You missed your appointment. You try to explain. She just sighs. That's a violation. You know what that means. A warrant. A hearing. Maybe back inside. You wonder why you even try. Scene 3, no address, no job, no chance, third-person perspective. James sat across from the recruiter, hands clenched together, posture stiff. I just need a chance, he said. The recruiter flipped through his file, clicking his tongue. You got a record. It's old. Doesn't matter. You got an address. James hesitated. I'm between places. The recruiter shook his head. No stable housing, no go. James exhaled through his nose, biting his tongue against the frustration. I can get housing if I get a job. The recruiter tapped the file. And you can get a job if you have housing. James swallowed hard. The street was a one-way road, and there was no U-turn in sight. Scene 4, the judge's wrath, third person, courtroom drama. Dante stood before the judge, his public defender whispering, just take the plea. He hadn't done what they said, but the plea meant less time. The alternative? A trial he couldn't afford, a jury that wouldn't believe him. The judge barely looked at him. Guilty. Dante swallowed. Nodded. Yes, Your Honor. The gavel cracked like a gunshot. Sentenced to 6 months. 6 months inside. 6 months out of work. 6 months of his life gone. He realized, then, that the sentence wasn't just time. It was the rest of his life. Let me know if you want more. You said, that's great. Could you think of any shared storylines with what you've got so far, any pieces that could be woven together and possibly characters and their backstories and circumstances? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Glad you liked them. Here's a possible shared storyline weaving these scenes together, along with characters and their backstories. Title, One-Way Street. A group of characters, each trapped in different points of the justice system, cross paths in ways that show how one mistake, one bad break, or one injustice can spiral into a cycle they can't escape. Their stories weave together as they try to break free, but every step forward comes with 2 steps back. Main characters and how they intersect. 1. Dante Carter, the young offender. Scene, the judge's wrath. Background, 19 years old, grew up in foster care, labeled a troublemaker early. Charged with assault after defending himself in a fight. His public defender tells him to take the plea deal, and he ends up with 6 months in jail. Struggle, once released, Dante can't find work due to his record. Without a job, he can't get housing. Without housing, he can't stay out of trouble. Connection. In jail, he meets James, who teaches him the ropes inside. After release, he ends up homeless and meets Maya, who helps him understand the parole system. Jalen, a streetwise ex-con, takes him under his wing but also tempts him into illegal hustles to survive. 2. James Holloway, the repeat offender. Scene, no address, no job, no chance. Background, 32 years old, in and out of prison since he was 16. Grew up in a poor neighborhood with little family support. Charged with possession at 17, which spiraled into a series of arrests. Struggle, every time he gets out, he tries to go straight, but parole conditions and job discrimination force him back into illegal work. Connection. He's the first person Dante meets in jail, warning him about the reality of being inside. He tries to get work after release but gets turned down. Scene, no address, no job, no chance. He starts sleeping in an abandoned house where he meets Maya, who tries to help him get housing. Jalen offers him a way to make money off the books, but James hesitates, wanting a legal way out. 3. Maya Richardson, the struggling parolee. Scene, the missing meeting. Background, 26 years old, single mother of 2, convicted of fraud for unknowingly cashing bad checks. Served a year in prison, now on parole. Lives in transitional housing but constantly at risk of losing it. Struggle, she has to balance parole check-ins, job searches, and taking care of her kids. Misses one appointment and risks going back to prison. Connection. She meets James while looking for housing and tells him about a program that might help. She advises Dante on how to stay in compliance with parole. Her parole officer, Officer Grant, constantly threatens to revoke her parole, forcing her into impossible choices. For Jalen J. Morris, the streetwise survivor. Scene, the smell of blood in the water. Background, 29 years old, grew up in a rough neighborhood, never officially charged but has a long history with police. Runs small-time hustles and knows how to work the system. Struggle, he avoids jail but is always under suspicion. He helps others navigate the streets, but his methods often involve crime. Connection. He meets Dante after his release and tries to mentor him in survival. He offers James under-the-table work when he can't get a job. He warns Maya about cops who harass parolees, but his solutions often involve skirting the law. 5. Officer Grant, the parole officer who doesn't care. Antagonist. Background, mid-40s, jaded, believes criminals never change. Works long hours, deals with hundreds of cases, and doesn't care about individual struggles. Struggle, he sees his job as maintaining order, not helping people reintegrate. He assumes all parolees are looking for an excuse to fail. Connection. He controls Maya's fate, constantly reminding her that one slip-up will send her back. He's the officer who arrested James years ago and sees him as hopeless. He ignores Dante's attempts to follow the rules, pushing him further into desperation. Story arcs and how they collide. Act 1, the trap closes. Dante takes a plea deal and enters jail, meeting James inside. Jalen watches from the outside, knowing Dante will struggle when he gets out. Maya is struggling to stay in compliance with parole while caring for her kids. She meets James when he gets turned down for housing. Officer Grant tightens his grip on parolees, increasing pressure on Maya and James. Act 2, fighting the system. Dante is released but finds himself unemployable. He turns to Jalen for survival tips. Maya misses a parole meeting due to an emergency with her kids. She tries to explain to Grant, but he doesn't care. She risks going back to prison. James tries to go straight but gets caught squatting in an abandoned house and faces arrest again. Jalen warns everyone that once the system has its teeth in you, it never lets go. Act 3, breaking point. Dante, desperate, considers robbing a store with Jalen. At the last second, he hesitates. James convinces him to back out. Maya is arrested for missing parole. James tries to advocate for her, but Grant refuses. Leniency. Jalen takes the fall for a crime to keep Dante out of jail but tells him, make it count. Don't end up like me. Dante, now determined to escape the system, seeks out legal aid for Maya and starts organizing for prison reform. Themes and takeaways. The system never forgets, one arrest can define a person's entire life. The cycle of recidivism, even those who want to escape struggle to do so. Survival versus legality, people like Jalen offer a way to survive, but at what cost? The cost of mercy, taking a plea deal, missing a parole check-in, or trusting the wrong person can ruin everything. Would you like to explore any of these characters or scenes in more depth? You said, could you draft some scenes about the narrow sheeple path? That as long as you're normal you experience the American liberty that we grow up hearing about. Obey teachers, game your grades, student loans, company drone, just do your job, mortgage, car payments, etc. You're given freedom and privilege, but step one toe or of line and you won't see liberty, freedom, peace, charity. You grew up learning to fix things with your grandpa on the farm. You thought you had some pretty good skills. You go to the big city and get a job in a scammy shop that lies, cheats, steals from customers and cuts corners on safety and treats everyone like garbage. You quit sick to your stomach at the disgusting lack of morals. You start up work on your own, trying to be more honest, forthright, fair, practical, better quality, etc. But you get slapped with fines, cease and desist. People say laws are there to protect people, to keep us safe, to ensure high quality and stop criminal business practices, but every time you try to comply you get fined more, scrutinized more, you call a dozen times and get 6 dozen different answers. The government doesn't know what the law is or how it's interpreted or how it's enforced. How can you obey when there is no consensus? You are told to do it right, like those scammy shops you left. Is the country owned by criminals? Why else would honest work be so oppressed? You try to help your friends and family, explaining the cons and scams they are being tricked into, but they advise you of scamming. Why are people happy to be lied to and cheated, and angry to be corrected and rescued? Since the beginning of time, there have been free men and slaves. Free men ran businesses, slaves did as they were told. Today, if you're found on your own, people ask where your owner is, Like a child or a dog. Who's your employer, who's your insurance provider, who's your cell phone provider, who's your bank, broker, teacher, parole officer, social worker, etc. You are an amazing cook, but you will be arrested if you try selling anything you cook, but you can get a job cooking in a disgusting diner for pennies, because that's legal. You are amazing with stock investing, but you better not offer unlicensed advice. You must direct your friends and family to bribed salesmen, mislabeled advisors. You are a world-removed heart surgeon, but you will be arrested for even sewing stitches in a country that doesn't recognize your history. The local cathedrals of knowledge demand penance. You know algebra, but the education system blocks you from learning higher math, because you have not shown proper obeisance to the priests of indoctrination. And other ideas that you can think of. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT, these ideas hit hard. Here are some scenes that explore the narrow sheeple path, showing how people are given freedom as long as they obey but are crushed the moment they try to think or act for themselves. 1. The honest mechanic, scene, do it right. You grew up fixing tractors and trucks with your grandpa. You know how to make a machine run forever with just the right tools and a little ingenuity. Then you move to the city. You get a job at Dale's Auto, a chain repair shop with a bright neon sign. The manager tells you, customers don't know anything. Sell them stuff they don't need. Time is money. If it looks fixed, it's fixed. If corporate doesn't know, it never happened. You can't stomach it. You quit. You start your own honest shop in an old warehouse, doing real work for fair prices. Then the city comes down on you. Fines. Your sign is the wrong size. Cease and desist. You don't have the right permit to turn a wrench. Regulations. You call for guidance and get a dozen different answers. You go back to Dale's Auto, just to see. The inspectors never show up there. You're told to do it right. Like them. 2. The shadow of a free man, scene, where's your owner? You quit your job. People look at you funny. So, what do? You try explaining, I run my own business. Oh, so who's your employer? Who's your insurance provider? Who do you bank with? Who's your social worker? You realize people aren't asking about your business. They're looking for your owner. If you had said, I work at Dale's Auto, the conversation would have ended. But you're on your own. That makes people nervous. 3. The jail cell kitchen, scene, cooking without permission. You love cooking. You can turn the cheapest ingredients into something incredible. You think, why not start a food cart? The city has an answer. You need a $20,000 kitchen to make a $5 sandwich. You need permits that take years to approve. You need a license from a bureaucrat who doesn't even cook. But if you work at Joe's Greasy Diner, where the meat sits in a bucket of gray water, where the owner hasn't washed his hands in a decade, that's legal. You can cook for pennies there, but not for yourself. 4. The unlicensed genius, scene, a crime to know. You studied math on your own. You get it? It makes sense. You try enrolling in advanced classes, but you hit a wall. You don't have the right credits, the right approval, the right signature from the right person. You're told you need prerequisites, 1,000 hours of drudgery to prove you can do what you already know. Meanwhile, a rich kid gets fast-tracked past you because his parents know people. You realize knowledge isn't the gate. The gate is obedience. 5. The forbidden surgeon, scene, not allowed to save a life. You spent decades as a heart surgeon overseas. You've saved more people than you can count. Now you're in a new country. Someone gets hurt, nothing major, just a deep cut. You move to stitch them up. A cop stops you. You can't do that. Why not? You're not licensed here. You say, I'm a surgeon. Not here, you're not. A licensed professional arrives, someone who's barely out of school. They stitch the wound poorly, fumbling, unsure. You realize saving a life isn't what matters. The license is what matters. 6. The educated criminal, scene, advice is a felony. You spent years learning the stock market. You know how to manage risk, how to grow money, how to navigate the chaos. Your friend asks for advice. You tell him what you know. You show him how to avoid scams. Then you get a letter. A warning. You're not a licensed financial advisor. If you give advice without approval, that's a crime. Your friend is legally required to go to a licensed financial advisor, the kind that takes kickbacks, the kind that legally must put corporate interests before clients. You were trying to help him for free. That was the crime. 7. The paperwork trap, scene, the missing form. You try to start a business. You fill out all the paperwork, submit every form, pay every fee. Then they tell you there's one missing document. It was never mentioned before. Now you have to start over. Months pass. You fix the mistake. Another problem. Another delay. Meanwhile, the big corporations never have this problem. Their forms go through like magic. You realize the paperwork isn't there to help. It's there to keep people like you out. 8. The slave's comfort, scene, happy in chains. Your friend gets scammed. A payday loan with 200% interest. A car lease that locks him in for 5 years. You warn him. He gets angry at you. Everyone does this, he says. That's just how it works. You try to show him another way. He refuses. He wants the system he knows, even if it hurts him. You realize something chilling. People love their chains. They don't want freedom. They want security. Even if it's fake. Final theme, the illusion of freedom. If you follow the narrow path, school, debt, job, mortgage, taxes, you are allowed to believe you are free. If you start a business, work outside the system, live by your own rules, you see how fast freedom disappears. The law isn't designed to keep you safe. It's designed to keep you in line. Would you like any of these expanded into a full story? You said, that's really good. Could you draft some more scenes that maybe you didn't have room for from previous prompts? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Absolutely. Here are some more scenes that expand on the themes we've been exploring. Recidivism, the narrow sheeple path, systemic oppression, and the illusion of freedom. 9. The one-way door, scene, once you're in, you're in. At 12 years old, he got in trouble at school, nothing serious, just a bad interaction with a teacher. But it was enough to get flagged. Suspensions turned into alternative schooling. Alternative schooling turned into juvenile probation. Probation violations turned into a first arrest. The moment he entered the system, it never let go. By 18, he had a record. The job applications asked about felonies. The employers didn't even read past that. No job, no money, no way out. The same system that said he was a criminal made sure he had no choice but to become one. 10. The second-class citizen, scene, freedom with a footnote. At 25, he finishes his prison sentence. He steps outside, breathing fresh air for the first time in years. But it doesn't feel like freedom. His probation officer controls where he lives. He can't leave the state without permission. He can't vote. He can't own a business without 1,000 extra steps. He can't even rent an apartment without being denied over and over. He gets a job washing dishes for less than minimum wage under the table, because no one will hire an ex-con. The message is clear, you're out, but you're not free. 11. The revolving door, scene, the setup. She's on parole. She's doing everything right. She's clean, working, staying out of trouble. Then her parole officer changes. New guy. Strict. Looking to make a name for himself. He gives conflicting rules. He changes her check-in schedule without telling her. He expects her to find a job, an apartment, and stability, but won't approve anything she applies for. One missed check-in. Violation. One unexpected visit at the wrong time. Violation. One wrong person in her apartment. Violation. She's back in prison for technicalities, not crimes. Her parole officer gets a promotion. 12. The target on your back, scene, marked for life. A cop runs his plates. The system pings, prior arrest. He gets pulled over for nothing. He gets searched for nothing. The cop asks loaded questions, where you headed? What's in your pockets? If he defends himself, he's aggressive. If he stays quiet, he's suspicious. If he tries to leave, he's resisting. He does everything right. But the cop keeps him on the side of the road for an hour. Just because he can. Next time might not end as peacefully. 13. The price of freedom, scene, how much can you pay? Two men get arrested for the same crime. One has money. He posts bail, hires a good lawyer, gets probation. The other is poor. He can't afford bail. He sits in jail for months, waiting for trial. He pleads guilty just to get out even though he didn't do it. Now, he has a record. He wasn't convicted because he was guilty. He was convicted because he was poor. 14. The scammed employee, seen, trapped at work. She works at Tech Corp, the biggest employer in town. The job pays just enough to survive, but not enough to leave. The health insurance only covers Tech Corp's doctors. The paychecks arrive 2 days late every month. HR tells her she's like family. But family wouldn't fire you for missing a day. She tries applying for other jobs. Tech Corp has a no poaching agreement with competitors. She realizes, this isn't a job. It's a trap. 15. The fraudulent education, seen, student loans, lifetime debt. They said college would set him up for success. They didn't mention the $80,000 in loans, the useless degree, the low-wage job that doesn't require a degree at all. When he can't pay his loans, the government garnishes his wages. When he defaults, he can't even declare bankruptcy. Student debt is the only debt that follows you for life. He realizes, the school wasn't selling an education. It was selling debt slavery. 16. The cost of ownership, seen, the house that owns you. He saves for years to buy a house. The moment he gets the keys, the bills start rolling in. Property taxes. You never truly own it, do you? Stop paying and the government takes it. HOA fees. You're told how to live in your own home. City inspections. Your fence is the wrong height? That's a fine. You don't own the house. The house owns you. 17. The burned entrepreneur, seen, punished for trying. She starts a business out of her garage. Handmade furniture. It takes off. People love her work. Then she gets hit with zoning violations, safety inspections, license requirements. Meanwhile, Amazon and IKEA can import toxic junk with zero oversight. She realizes, the system isn't designed to help small businesses. It's designed to destroy them. 18. The approved future, seen, freedom by default. He followed the rules his whole life. Got good grades. Took out loans for college. Got a job at a major corporation. Bought a house with a 30-year mortgage. Works 40 hours a week. People praise him. He's responsible. He looks at his life and wonders, did I choose this? Or was this the only option I was given? 19. The unwritten law, seen, know your place. A billionaire breaks the law. He gets a fine. A poor man breaks the law. He gets prison. A politician commits fraud. They resign quietly. An employee steals food because they're starving. They get fired and blacklisted. The message is clear, the law isn't about justice. It's about power. 20. The lost inventor, seen, the patent trap. He invents a revolutionary product. He files for a patent. He gets hit with lawsuits from corporations claiming he infringed on their vague patents. He runs out of money before he can sell a single unit. A year later, a big company releases his exact invention. He learns, patents don't protect inventors. They protect monopolies. These are just a few more ways the illusion of freedom is maintained. Which of these do you want to expand on? You said, that's all really good. Could you do some from the perspective of employers now, those that have had to year themselves in knots, bend over backwards, and become a heartless miser to keep the lights running? That as hard as it is to be crushed by the system, it can be just as hard to keep going, struggling under the crushing weight of the bureaucratic bloat, Atlas sweating to hold up the sky so his people, employees, clients, suppliers, family, community, can walk freely and think a breath of fresh air is relaxing. Those rare entrepreneurs that kept with it, battered by the battles with red tape, taxes, fines and paperwork that crush all but the most pig-headed heartless men, they are covered in blood and scars, gray hair, worry, wrinkles, heart failure, drugs, alcohol. They try and try and try every day, yet they know that if they ever falter an inch, if they let anyone see the sky shudder, then they will be seen as monsters, burned at the stake, and their loved ones will be captured by a monster even worse than they are. ChatGPT said, ChatGPT, these are the unsung warriors, the broken titans, the employers who didn't quit. They sacrificed their souls to keep their people fed, crushed under a system that punishes everyone. But most of all, the ones who refuse to let it break them. Here are some scenes from their perspective. 21 The weight of 1,000 lives. Scene, every paycheck is blood money. At the end of every month, he sits at his desk, staring at the numbers. Payroll, taxes, rent, inventory, fines, fees. The never-ending avalanche. His employees go home to their families, their paychecks in hand, spending without a thought. To them, payday is a simple relief. To him, it's a battlefield. He had to beg the bank not to pull his loan. He had to threaten his supplier to extend his credit line. He had to fire an old friend, just to keep the lights on. He doesn't sleep. He barely eats. If he falls, his employees fall with him. And if they ever find out just how close they are to ruin, they'll hate him for it. So he smiles. And carries the weight alone. 22 The impossible choice. Scene, break the law or go under. The inspector walks in with a clipboard. He smiles like a butcher looking at fresh meat. You're not in compliance, he says. The new regulations require a $50,000 ventilation system, a $20,000 electrical upgrade, a license that didn't even exist last year. He does the math. He can't afford this. No one can afford this. So he does what every other business does, he breaks the law. He pays an off-the-books electrician instead of getting permits. He finds a loophole to classify his workers as independent contractors. He keeps the food at 1 degree below the legal temperature because he can't afford to throw out another $5,000 in inventory. If he gets caught, he's ruined. But if he follows the rules, he's ruined anyway. 23 The lifeline that turns to a noose. Scene, the loan shark in a suit. He never wanted to take out the loan. But the regulations were too much. The taxes were too high. The margins were too thin. The bank offered him a lifeline. Now, it's a noose. His loan payments are due before he even makes a profit. The interest rate eats every dime he earns. One missed payment and his business is gone overnight. So he keeps borrowing. Debt on top of debt. They don't call it a business anymore. They call it a zombie company. Not alive. Not dead. Just waiting to collapse. 24 The fake safety net. Scene, laws protect employees, not jobs. His best worker is struggling. A family emergency. He wants to help, but the government already decided for him. Sick pay. Family leave. Disability coverage. The law says he can't fire him. But the law also says the business still has to run. Bills still have to be paid. There's no government help for employers. So he hires a temp. The temp sues for discrimination. His best worker never comes back. Now he's down 2 employees and facing a lawsuit. The law didn't save anyone. It just ruined them both. 25 The firing squad. Scene, damned if you do, damned if you don't. The new guy isn't working out. He's lazy. He's disrespectful. He's scaring customers away. The other employees beg him to fire him. He calls the lawyer first. He has to. The guy is a minority, he could claim discrimination. The guy has anxiety, he could claim disability protection. The guy knows the system, he might sue just for the severance check. If he fires him, he could lose his business. If he keeps him, his whole team suffers. There's no good choice. He fires him. Within a week, he's served a lawsuit. 26 The tax that never ends. Scene, nothing you earn is yours. Tax season. Again. He doesn't just pay taxes. He collects them. Payroll tax. He takes money from his employees before they even see it. Sales tax. He collects from customers and sends it to the government. Corporate tax. He pays on profits he barely gets to keep. And then, the hidden taxes. Fees. Fines. Permits. Licensing. Every year, the government takes more than he makes. He works for them. Not the other way around. 27 The lawsuit lottery. Scene, one false move and you lose everything. A customer spills coffee on themselves. The next day, a lawyer calls. It doesn't matter that the coffee wasn't defective. The customer wasn't burned. The claim is ridiculous. The lawyer knows he can't afford a court battle. So he settles. Pays thousands. If he fights, he loses. If he settles, he loses. Somewhere, a billboard goes up, "Have you been injured? Call now." They don't care about justice. They're just looking for their next victim. 28. The privilege of ownership, seen, the collar is invisible. His employees complain about their jobs. They say he has it easy. You're the boss. You can do whatever you want. He laughs. He works 80 hours a week so they can work 40. He misses his kids' birthdays so they can go home at 5 p.m. He takes the risk so they can collect a paycheck. If the business succeeds, they demand more money. If the business fails, he loses everything. He's not free. He's just the last one allowed to fail. 29. The monster they need, seen, the villain who saves them. They call him greedy, ruthless, cutthroat. They don't see the 3 nights he spent sleepless, saving the company from collapse. The times he's gone without a paycheck to make sure his workers got theirs. The constant stress of knowing one mistake could destroy everything. He has to be tough, sharp, relentless. If he falters, the company falls. If the company falls, his employees lose their homes. If he ever shows weakness, they'll turn on him. They don't want a boss. They want a beast who can fight the system and win. Even if they hate him for it. 30. The real enemy, seen, what they'll never understand. They hate their employers. They hate the rich. But the real enemy isn't the employer barely keeping the business alive. It's the bureaucrats who make survival impossible. It's the banks that drown them in debt. It's the government that fines them into submission. They want a villain? Then fine. He'll be the villain they need. Because if he ever stops fighting, they'll learn what true evil looks like. And they won't survive it. Which of these resonates with you most? Want to expand on any? You said, "Those are amazing, thank you." Could you do one with an atlas analogy? And then let's work on some other perspectives: law enforcement, judges, social workers, county clerks, child protective services, lawyers, inspectors, auditors, etc. See what scenes you can draft up, ChatGPT said, ChatGPT 31. Atlas shrugged. No. Atlas gritted his teeth. They call him a monster. A miser. A heartless bastard. But they don't see the sky trembling above them. Atlas stands, his muscles taut, his spine bent, his breath ragged. On his shoulders, the weight of his employees' mortgages, his suppliers' livelihoods, his customers' expectations, his family's survival. The world doesn't care how much it takes. New taxes. He shifts his stance. New regulations. He grits his teeth. A lawsuit? A fine? A broken economy? His knees shake, but he does not fall. Because if he does, if the sky drops for even a second, everyone he protects will be crushed. Yet, they curse him. You greedy pig, just pay us more. You evil boss, stop exploiting us. You heartless man, why do you make everything so expensive? They throw stones. They spit. They pile more weight onto his back. And yet he stands. Because if he ever shrugs, they'll finally see what true disaster looks like. That's the Atlas scene. Now let's dive into other perspectives. Law enforcement. 32. The badge feels heavier every day, seen, enforce the law or save a life. He pulls a man over. The guy is desperate, exhausted, afraid. His car is unregistered. Insurance lapsed. License expired. The man begs him. I lost my job. I can't afford the fees. If I can just make it to work today, but the law is clear. He writes the ticket. The fines will ruin the man. He'll probably lose his car. Then he'll lose his job. By following the law, he just destroyed another man's life. And tomorrow? He'll do it again. Judges. 33. Justice is a business, seen, guilty until proven profitable. His courtroom isn't about justice. It's about revenue. The system runs on fines. The system profits off plea deals. The system thrives when the poor can't fight back. A man stands before him, unable to afford a lawyer. The prosecutor makes an offer: plead guilty, pay a fine, or go to trial and risk years in prison. The man caves. Another conviction. Another paycheck for the system. And he calls it justice. Social workers. 30 for saving people or controlling them. Scene: no good deed goes unpunished. She wants to help. That's why she took this job. But every form, every report, every government mandate turns people into paperwork. A mother asks for housing assistance. Denied. Too much income. A father asks for child support relief. Denied. The system needs him in debt. A family begs for help. The system sends a check, but not hope. She wants to help. But all she can do is watch people sink, buried in bureaucracy. And if she speaks out, she'll be fired. Child Protective Services, CPS. 35 The power to destroy. Scene: are we the monsters? A report comes in. Neglect. Abuse. She has 24 hours to investigate. She knocks. A mother answers. Terrified. The home is messy. Not illegal. The fridge isn't full. Not illegal. The kids look scared. Of her, not their mom. But the system demands action. If she leaves the kids there and something happens, she's to blame. If she takes them away, she might be ruining a family for no reason. She's judge, jury, executioner. And every night, she dreams of the children she might have failed. County clerks. 36 The gatekeepers of misery. Scene: fill out the form again. The man at the counter is begging. I filed this paperwork 3 times. The system lost it? Again. He can't get his business license. He can't get his marriage certificate. He can't get his disability benefits. And all she can say is, try again. She hates this job. But what else can she do? Lawyers. 37 Justice for sale. Scene: whoever can pay the most wins. He wanted to fight for justice. Instead, he fights for whoever pays him. His firm helps corporations destroy small businesses. His firm helps rich men hide assets from their ex-wives. His firm helps criminals walk free if they can afford it. The truth doesn't matter. Only billable hours do. And if he ever quits, 1,000 other lawyers will take his place. Inspectors and auditors. 38 The fine that keeps the lights on. Scene: everyone's a criminal, if you look hard enough. His job isn't to help. His job is to find violations. A business has too many signs in the window. Fine. A restaurant is missing a permit for an outdoor heater. Fine. A factory didn't fill out the latest compliance form. Fine. Every fine funds the agency. If he doesn't find violations, his department doesn't get paid. So he always finds something. And he never wonders why businesses keep closing. 39 The crushing weight of the machine. They all see it. They all feel it. But no one can stop it. The police enforce laws they know are unjust. The judges uphold rulings they know are rigged. The social workers push papers they know don't help. The auditors write fines they know will destroy people. They are not villains. They are cogs in a system too big to fight. And if they resist, they'll be crushed next. That was intense. Which perspective stood out to you? Want to explore more angles? You said. Yeah, could you do a few more? And if you think of any perspectives, tasks, jobs, roles, positions, circumstances that are usually overlooked or rarely covered that seem interesting or heart-touching, could you draft some of those? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT: absolutely. Let's push deeper, exploring perspectives that are often unseen. People caught in the machine, struggling in ways no one talks about. 40 The small-town doctor. I can save your life, but not your wallet. She didn't become a doctor to push pills. She didn't take the oath to deny care. But every day, she has to turn people away. A father needs an MRI. Insurance won't cover it. A mother needs insulin. The price just doubled. A child needs surgery. Medicaid won't approve it. She knows how to help. But her hands are tied by forms, approvals, and hospital policies. So she watches people suffer not from disease, but from bureaucracy. And every night, she wonders if her job still means anything at all. 41 The truck driver. Deliver, or the country dies. He's alone on the highway. Again. His back hurts. His eyes burn. His kids barely know him. But if he stops driving, the grocery stores go empty. The hospitals run out of medicine. The factories shut down. He sees people on the news mocking his job. Just a trucker. They don't know he's the reason they ate breakfast this morning. And if he ever stops, they'll learn real quick how fragile their world is. 42 The farmer. The last independent man. His hands are calloused. His skin is sunburned. His debt is crippling. He grows real food. But the government pays megacorporations to grow fake food cheaper. Regulations keep him from selling directly. Taxes bleed him dry. Megafarms crush him with mass production. The same people who mock him for being old-fashioned will starve without him. And he knows it. But when he's gone, no one will replace him. 43 The teacher. Am I a babysitter or an educator? She wanted to teach. She wanted to inspire. Now she's just managing chaos. She can't discipline. Parents will sue. She can't fail students. The school needs high pass rates. She can't even teach math. She has to teach the test. She spends more time on paperwork than helping kids. And the worst part? No one blames the system. They blame her. 44 The prison guard. We're not keeping criminals in. We're keeping them from escaping out here. Most of the men in here aren't monsters. They're just men who broke a rule they couldn't afford to fix. A guy couldn't pay his tickets. A guy missed child support payments. A guy sold weed before it was legal. And now, they're trapped in a warehouse for human mistakes. He watches hardened criminals walk free because they had good lawyers, while decent men rot because they were poor. And he wonders, are the bars keeping them in, or keeping society from seeing what it's become? 45 The customer service rep. I know you're angry. I am too. She answers 500 calls a day. The bank stole your money. She can't fix it. The company is lying. She knows. The system is screwing you. It's screwing her too. She hates the company more than you do. But she needs this job to survive. So she smiles through her headset, as another customer screams at her for something she can't change. 46 The immigrant entrepreneur. You told me to work hard. Then you punished me for it. He came here legally. He worked 2 jobs. He saved every penny. He started a business. Now, they tax him more. They fine him for paperwork errors. They tell him he's privileged, even though he started with nothing. Just follow the law, they say. But the law is designed to make him fail. 47 The funeral director. Nobody plans for death. Until it's too late. She sees grief every day. A mother wailing for her child. A widow staring at an empty bed. A family fighting over inheritance. The worst part? People never prepare for death. Then, when it happens, they blame her for the cost. She doesn't make the rules. She just helps people say goodbye. Even if they hate her for it. 48 The homeless veteran. I was willing to die for this country. Now it pretends I don't exist. Once, he was a hero. Now, he's just another guy on the sidewalk. They gave him medals. But no help. They sent him to war. But won't give him housing. They cheered for him. But won't hire him. The same people who say support our troops, won't even look him in the eyes when they pass him on the street. 49 The small town mechanic. The big guys cut corners. I go bankrupt playing by the rules. He loves fixing cars. But every year, it gets harder to survive. The EPA fines him for oil disposal. The city fines him for zoning violations. The government won't let him fix cars with unapproved parts. Meanwhile, big repair chains cut corners, overcharge, and get away with it. If he does the same, he'll be shut down in a month. 50 The struggling minimum wage worker. They say I should just work harder. I work 2 jobs. I'm still drowning. She's doing everything right. She works 60 hours a week. She never calls in sick. She follows every rule. And yet, rent is too high. Gas is too expensive. Her paycheck is gone before she even gets it. And when she asks for help, people call her lazy. Final thought, the machine consumes everyone. The workers are crushed. The bosses are crushed. The enforcers are crushed. The desperate are crushed. The only ones who aren't are the people pulling the strings. And nobody even knows their names. That got heavy. Which perspective stood out to you the most? Want to explore more? You said, doctors could prescribe exercise and diet, but drugs come with a legal team safety net. She prescribes a pill she knows will have negative side effects, cost an arm and a leg, and not fix the real problem, just mask it, and if anything goes wrong $1 billion pharma lawyer will protect her for dealing their drugs. But she prescribes better sleep, heart-to-heart chats with a friend, walks in the mornings, and talking with a bishop, and she sued 6 ways to Sunday. Sacrificing for rotten systems and fat thieves, teachers, nurses, firefighters, police, soldiers, etc., etc., etc. You work 18-hour days trying to serve those in need. You look with sadness and disgust at those that sold out and went to work for-profit schools, clinics, private security, etc. They go up and get huge paychecks, massive budgets, nicest equipment, plenty of staff. They sold out, they took money over serving those in need. They pull splinters for millionaires, while we attempt surgery with used scalpels. Yet these sacrificing heroes don't seem to notice that their schools, hospitals, departments, etc., have just as much money or more than the fancy for-profit alternatives. They don't question where the money is going, why the rules and systems are so disorganized. Could it be that they are sacrificing, not to face lives, but to line the pockets of corruption? Could quitting failing systems actually help more than propping them up with another generation's blood, sweat and years? Could the cause you joined actually be best served by joining the competition? Why do you turn your back on your brother wearing a different color coat and yet keep supporting bosses and boards that treat you and you patients like trash or livestock ready for meat packing? Could you draft some scenes? ChatGPT said. ChatGPT: absolutely. Let's dive into those emotional, poignant, and critical perspectives. Here are a few scenes based on your vision. 51. The doctor who prescribes medications she doesn't believe in. The bitter pill. Dr. Mason stares at the prescription pad in front of her. Her hand trembles as she writes down the name of the medication. She's given it hundreds of times. It's the easiest route. But she knows the truth. The patient needs lifestyle changes, sleep, exercise, community support, not this chemical band-aid that'll cost them a fortune. She knows the pill will come with side effects, some mild, some devastating. But it's covered by insurance. The pharmaceutical company will have its legal team at the ready if anything goes wrong. She knows it won't fix the problem. It'll only delay it long enough to keep people in the system, dependent on the cycle. But if she recommends real solutions, diet, exercise, mindfulness, therapy, she'll be sued. Her hands shake as she writes the prescription. She swallows the bitter feeling in her chest. She's doing the job. The only job. But the system is broken, and she's just one more cog in its gears. 52. The firefighter sacrificing his life for a system that takes. Fighting fires with empty hands. Jason's body aches from the shift, muscles sore from hours of hauling hoses and scaling ladders, smoke still clinging to his lungs. It's all worth it, though, right? Saving lives? Yet, as he stares at the hospital bill for a burn victim's recovery, he can't help but feel a pang of resentment. He did everything right, but the victim's insurance company won't cover the treatment. The family is left with nothing. Meanwhile, a for-profit emergency service has just finished upgrading its entire fleet with top-tier equipment. For-profit clinics are serving wealthy clients with priority service and excessive care, charging ridiculous fees for basic treatments. They've got the best technology, the best paychecks, and the best perks. And Jason's department? The old equipment needs replacing, and they're still waiting for approval on better safety gear. He can't even afford decent work boots on his pay. He wonders if he's sacrificing himself for a system that's rotting from the inside out, one where the people at the top take more than they give, where the fire is stoked by the fuel of tax dollars and corporate greed. But how could he leave? Where else would he go? 53. The nurse who sees the system devour her patients. The price of saving lives? Nurse Carla watches as a family struggles to pay for their son's surgery. The insurance keeps denying his claim, and every appeal is met with more paperwork, more frustration. Carla's seen it before. She watches the boy suffer, his family's tears, knowing that the real problem isn't the disease, it's the system that's designed to deny care. She knows that if he was at a for-profit hospital, he'd be treated like royalty. But here, in this public hospital, they're given scraps, treated as numbers, treated as expendable. Carla can't help but think if only they had the money. And the worst part? She's watched this happen to hundreds of families over the years. She has the answers, the care, the time, but the system doesn't let her help in the way she knows best. They'll put a pill in their hands before they'll let her recommend a healthy diet or a simple walk. She's trapped. And every day she watches the system eat away at her soul, she wonders if the battle is already lost. 54 The soldier who fights for a country that forgot him. Wounds that never heal. Corporal Daniel sat in the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey that he couldn't quite taste. His body was still haunted by the scars of war, both physical and mental, but it wasn't the pain that kept him awake at night. It was the feeling that he was nothing but a pawn. The government sent him overseas, told him he was a hero, gave him a medal for his service. But when he came home, the job was gone. His benefits were stripped away. And now he could barely afford to eat. The country he served has abandoned him. The VA is a joke. The paychecks are insulting. And the jobs they promised him are non-existent. Meanwhile, the military-industrial complex gets richer. The generals, the contractors, the CEOs, they all get their cuts. But Daniel? He's just forgotten. He wonders if he'd be better off turning his back on it all. Maybe he should join the competition, join the private sector, where people make real money. But then again, he'd be betraying everything he believed in. But is the real betrayal to stay loyal to a country that doesn't even care about him? 55 The police officer who pays the price. Protect and serve? Or protect the system? Officer Max has always believed in protecting his community. He's been on the force for over a decade, and every shift brings him face to face with the harsh realities of crime, addiction, and poverty. But these days, he's questioning whether his efforts are making a difference. He pulls over a car one night. Inside is a young couple, desperate, living paycheck to paycheck. The man is caught with drugs, something that could ruin his life. But Max knows the truth: the system doesn't care about rehabilitation. It just wants punishment. Max can't shake the feeling that his job is becoming less about protecting the people and more about fueling the cycle. He sees the for-profit prisons filling up with people like this young man, people who were never given the resources to succeed, people who were left behind. But if Max speaks up, if he tries to change things, he knows he'll be reprimanded. He'll be ostracized. The system keeps churning, and Max keeps feeding the beast with his own sweat, tears, and blood. And as he lies awake after another long shift, he wonders if he's really helping anyone at all, or just helping the fat cats at the top line their pockets. 56 The teacher who becomes a warden. We teach to survive, not to inspire. Ms. Lara never dreamed of becoming a glorified babysitter. She wanted to inspire young minds, to open doors to possibilities they couldn't even imagine. But now, she stands in front of her class, staring at faces that are distracted, tired, lost. She knows that many of them won't go to college. Some won't even graduate. Her real job? Keeping them in line. Her real job is teaching to a test, not the heart of the subject. Her real job is managing behavior, not engaging minds. She hates it. She hates the red tape, the accountability for things outside her control, and the disrespect from politicians and parents. She sees teachers leaving for private schools or online institutions, places that offer higher pay, better equipment, and fewer restrictions. She sees teachers selling out, getting caught up in a system that values profits over people. And part of her wonders, if she left, would anyone even notice? But then she looks back at the kids in her classroom. She's their last chance. Can she really leave them? How did these feel? Would you like to tweak any specific ones, or dive into more? Search reason. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.